Oh my goodness, I'm reporting to you today. I'm sounding the alarm again with another expat warning. No internets, no flights, no banks. Is a global lockdown coming right now? Why are people not sounding the alarm? The New York to France airline route has just been quietly suspended with little explanation. They're not telling you why. You can no longer book a flight from New York to Paris, France, okay? So if you are planning on coming to Africa and you are going to divert through France, that's no longer possible. You may want to take the Miami route. If you were going to leave from New York to France, if you were going from France to America to New York, you can no longer do that. Now, currently they're citing that there's no demand for people from Europe to come into America. That's true. I saw the videos. Nobody is in those airlines anymore. Nobody from Europe is going to America the way they used to. Europeans are staying within Europe for intra-Europe travel, or they're diverting to Asia, or they're diverting to Africa. They're no longer interested in America. America's tourism has completely collapsed. Hear me well. I need you to hit the like button. I need you to share this with 5 people right now. Because again, you cannot book a flight from New York to Paris, France. And the cancellations were not tied to weather, and no major strike has been announced. And yet, travelers across JFK, Charles de Gaulle, found themselves scrambling for rebookings, hotel vouchers, or worse. They were stranded indefinitely. And this isn't just a travel inconvenience. This is a warning of something bigger. If you're a digital nomad, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are an expat, a remote worker, the signs are stacking up right in front of our eyes. There's a quiet tightening of the global movement. But listen, this is reminiscent of the days of the early 2020s, literally the year 2020. But this time it's not for a pandemic, it's not for an illness. It's because of instability, political censorship, and economic collapse. These new patterns stretch from Africa to Europe, and this is what you need to know. Travel diplomats are currently pointing to an airline cooling between US and EU relations. Historically, these two areas would just always be in each other's spaces. People would fly to New York. New York is like one of the top tourist destinations, or at least in times past. Paris is undoubtedly a top travel destination on the entire planet. But listen, these route changes that are unannounced and provoked by nothing signal that things are getting worse. Now, this could be your transit point to North Africa or West Africa, but in short, if you're bilingual, you're building something cross-border, your movement just got a lot harder. Now let's talk about the U.S. Embassy closures and State Department clues, because you should also be aware, my friend, as we're talking about the New York to Paris flight being cut off, guess what else? The State Department has issued new travel warnings and stopped people from coming into America from Ethiopia, Nigeria, Ghana, and a couple of other countries. They have stopped visas into America. I actually saw a video from Redirecting. Shout out to Watchman Reports and Redirecting. Okay, I was watching the Redirecting channel. It is a truth channel, all right? And she was talking about, hey, are these closures and these mimicking lockdown situations trying to stop people from coming into America, or trying to stop Americans from getting out of America? And I just want to know what you think down below, because it's weird. It's one thing when we had 2020. It's one thing that you can see that they have, a pandemic or whatever, and things are starting to close down. But we're seeing small closures around the world, mostly in America. Right? Last time it started in China. We're seeing small closures around the world for almost no apparent reason at all, which is really weird. Now, the State Department has let go of 1,300 employees. These employees are historically people who are going to handle your passport, your citizenship services while abroad or still in the States. You have them on both hands. But they said, nope, we're cutting access to that. We're cutting funding. We don't need those workers. Y'all are not going to need the State Department, because you Americans are not going anywhere, and Europeans are not going to America. And guess what? Africans not going to America. And you can only assume the same for Asians. Now, oh my goodness, I got another crazy insight for you, okay? Get ready for this. They're about to deport 300,000 Venezuelans to South Sudan. They have already started a shipment of taking people who were murderers, convicted criminals. They have already deported them to Eswatini. If you don't know what Eswatini is basically a nation inside of South Africa, but it's a sovereign nation. 5 immigrants, they are described as being uniquely barbaric with criminal records. They were deported by the United States to Eswatini, which was formerly Swaziland, just this month, literally a day or so ago. Their convictions included murder, child rape, and among other offenses. The men are citizens of Vietnam, that's crazy, Jamaica, Cuba, Yemen, and Laos, all of which those 5 nations are on the 36 country travel ban to the US, okay? Eswatini accepted them. They're like, yeah, we don't know when they're gonna get out, but we'll hold them for you right here. We got your back, America. We're gonna hold them. They said it's not an issue. They're gonna be right here in this cell. They're not gonna stress y'all out no more, okay? And now, so the next phase is the 300,000. Get this, not 100, not 200. Just think of the infrastructure, okay? 300,000 Venezuelans. Y'all remember a couple of years back, maybe a year ago, they were saying the Venezuelans were ruling the gangs. The Venezuelans were ruling stuff in, what was that city in Colorado? Aurora or something like that? They were saying the Venezuelans were ruling in the east coast of America. They're saying they were in Florida. Well, now they said they're picking up those 300,000 people. They said they can't stay at Alligator Alcatraz, this down there in the Everglades in Florida. They said they're going to have to go to South Sudan. South Sudan is a war-torn country, so you can only imagine what's going to happen to those Venezuelans, okay? And listen, if you've been listening this long and you're like, I feel like I need to be in community with you, I feel like I want to join the state of the diaspora. We just did the 8th. We're doing the 9th this weekend, the 10th in 2 weeks, the 11th the week after that. I think it's the 11th or 12th edition of the state of the diaspora. If you are one of those people that does not want to be trapped in America, I am pleased, honored, and privileged to tell you, you don't have to stay trapped if you don't want to. As they lock down, there is still a small window of opportunity. It is July 2025. We have August, September, October, November, December. You have 5 months to still make your plan and leave. You can hop on that plane and say, you know what? I want to be a part of the free people elsewhere in the world, whether they're in Eastern Europe, Africa, Asia, that are going to be living their best sustainable lives without being basically detrimentally locked into American society. But now get this, if you do not have your passport, and again, check out the link in the description to join the state of the diaspora, but I have to continue moving because listen, if you do not currently have your passport, several US embassies and passport facilities in America are only offering emergency services. Appointment booking systems in multiple nations are suddenly offline, and auto email response cite unforeseen infrastructure issues. I'm trying to sound the alarm. I'm trying to sound the alarm. Hit the like button and share this because I promise you, this is going to look like a lockdown and a blackout that we have never seen in the Western world before. There are going to be countries open. This is what we discussed in the 5-in-1 state of the diaspora, so that you're not targeting one country. You're not having to go, okay, back and forth, Africa, America. That don't make sense, right? You don't want to do that. Who wants to do that with their life? You are someone who more so desires to stay out of the West for good. And we are honored to teach you because guess what? We've been out of America for 5 going on 6 years, have lived in multiple countries, have had children abroad, have sold property abroad. And our children are getting older too. And so now we're thinking like, okay, which colleges do we want them to go on the continent? What kind of relationships do we want them to have? What ideally, like what people would we potentially want them to be married to, right? Do we want them to have, networks in Ghana? Do we want them to have networks in Ethiopia? Do we want them to have networks? Obviously, they're already going to have a network in Mauritius. Do we want to potentially take them to Seychelles? If that sounds appealing to you and you like that train of thought, the state of the diaspora could possibly be for you. But listen, now let's talk about North Africa. Tunisia has seen 3 nationwide blackouts, okay? Nigeria has experienced regional internet outings during student protests, and economies are now being retargeted by advanced phishing and infrastructure attacks. if your business relies on a Airbnb, if your business is not digitally free, if you're not a consultant or you do not have an online arm of your business, and you are basically strapped to a brick and mortar, strapped to one location, this is your sign to diversify like yesterday, okay? And you know what? I think this is all I have for you for right now, okay? This is all I have for right now. But I want you to remember the psychological pattern from 2020 before I leave you. Think about 2020. They said it would just take 2 weeks. There were going to be temporary border closures. They were only going to need essential workers. Now we're seeing temporary embassy staffing reductions, unplanned digital service outages, flight suspensions due to technical realignments. These are not coincidences. They're a part of a global soft lockdown pattern. No loud announcements, just quiet inaccessibility, because they don't want you to be mobile. They don't want you to be sovereign. They don't want you to understand what's out there in the world. They don't want you to have a network, to have business investments in multiple countries at one time. They want you stuck. They want you to be super stuck as part of the system. Because remember, in Europe and the EU, they just passed the EU digital ID. So how can you prepare now? Create a travel plan. Keep $300 to $500 at least in physical cash in your current location. Secure offline copies of your documents. Citizenship, birth certificates. Obviously, you're always going to have your passport. Make copies of that as well. Have password protected PDFs. And again, join a sovereign intelligence network like the State of the Diaspora or the Expat Intelligence Weekly Briefing. You can check them out, the link in the description, because these times call for unprecedented measures. But we got out in the middle of a pandemic. The airports were basically empty. People were wearing masks. We were advised, no, you shouldn't do that. It's going to be too scary. We did it. And I'm telling you, by faith and grace, you can do it too. Shalom, shalom. I'll see you in the next video.